Welcome to the Leveling Up podcast. I am here today with Ribs LaMothe. Thank you so much for being here, Ribs.
Thank you, Adam. Happy to be here.
Tell me about your professional background.
I'm retired as a consultant, and that's one of the reasons why we're talking here. I used to be an instructional designer and facilitator, and I did consulting work for banks and medical firms and manufacturers. I basically taught people how to sell things. And part of that was designing programs that help people to learn. So that's kind of how you and I got in conversation, because your job is to help people to learn through your articles. And I wanted to see if I could make a contribution to that.
That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out this year with this Leveling Up project is how do we learn and what can we do to facilitate that?
From an instructional design point of view, all people perform based on three different domains in their brain. One is the cognitive domain, what they know. One is psychomotor, that's all skills, and that has nothing to do with this. And the third is the affective domain, the way that attitudes that people have, the way they feel about things. And I'm trying to posit that the growth in what you know, your experience, and all of that, which is very powerful. The top experts have played thousands and thousands of games of bridge. But the part that's equally important, if not more important, I would maintain, is the affective domain, the way people feel about the game, the way they feel about learning, and their attitudes about it and experiences. All of us are very familiar with the great story about Bob Hammond, who, when he makes a mistake, puts it behind him and gets on with the next hand. That is a very powerful affective component of the game. So you do that, I try to do that, but we all know about that as being a powerful one.
Let's say that I am currently a 7 out of 10 in both bridge skill and knowledge and this affective domain. And I wanted to get better, and I wanted to choose one of those two domains to focus on. Which one do you think would have the most bang for the buck?
I think the attitudinal one. If you look at the expert player, you're at the expert level. I would say that in terms of straight card play, all people who have made it to the expert level kind of top out on, I can't be any better at the simple playing of the cards. They are all experts, very, very good at the strictly card play. So what is it that gets in their way? It must be something about their attitude or emotion that gets in the way of their being a better player. I'll give you a perfect example. You're playing against a team that always seems to beat you. You say, son of a gun, I can't beat Adam Parrish. That guy, he just gets me every time. I mean, I should be able to beat this guy. He's terrible, but he gets me. You know, you just sat down at the table with an absolutely poor attitude toward playing that team. In fact, if you have a good board against that team, the opposite effect might take place. You might say, my goodness, I just beat Parrish in that last hand. He failed to take the finesse, or I played him. Wow, I'm a better player than he is. And so we tend to do this all the time when we play bridge. We make judgments about people. So I put some stock in it just because emotions are so powerful. A very simple example. I did a thing in class where I would say, how many people in here have exactly 2 children? And several people raised their hand. And I picked one person and I said, let me ask you a couple of questions about your kids. What are they, boys or girls? Are there one boy, one girl? Okay, and how old are they? Well, one's 10, the other's 13. So, and their names. Well, their names are Mary and Tom. Then I say to them, now I just got one more question for you. What is the one thing that, as you think of these 2 youngsters, that you and your spouse think are absolutely lovable? Well, I'm going to tell you, Adam, you can't shut them up. They give you a real long description of the kids, the things that they love about their kids. And when they get done, I stop and I say, we're going to go back over these 2 people and the questions. I want to debrief it. The first 3 questions I asked were what? What were they? Well, their age, their name, and their sex. And what domain of the brain did they get that information from? Well, they got it in the cognitive domain. That's purely factual. Correct. Now I ask one more question. What was it? What's lovable about your kids? What happened then? I couldn't shut the guy up. He talked and talked and talked. The affective domain took over there. It captivated him, and he talked for a long time about how much he loves his kids. The affective domain is extraordinarily powerful. There are a number of little tiny tips. Here's one. Let's suppose that the guy on your left opens the bidding 3 diamonds. All right, how many diamonds does he have, Adam? Just guess.
I
He
mean, probably
opens.
7.
He probably has 7. Now, you don't know that he has 7, right? But here's this is attitudinal. Pretend he has 7. I talked to Kristen Onsgaard one time. We were talking about the differences between intermediate and advanced players. And she said, the advanced player is capable of visualizing the opponent's cards. And I thought that that was a really good assessment. If I were going to separate the intermediate player from the advanced player, I'd say the advanced player has learned to picture the opponent's cards. But what you do is you extend that and you say, I'm going to say to myself that he has 7 diamonds and he's 2-2-2 in the 3 other suits. That's even less likely. In fact, very few of those hands are 7-2-2-2. But start there. And here's my logic in this. Let us suppose that you take a test in school. You're in college and there's 20 questions on the test and they all count 5 points. You miss 2 questions. You walk out of the test, you say, I aced that one. I got 100. But you missed 2. You get the grade back, you got a 90. 2 are wrong. Well, what is your attention riveted on right now? What are you thinking about?
The 2 you got wrong.
I'm going to look at those 2 questions. I'm going to remember this is what I put down. I can't believe I didn't get that. I studied so hard. Trust me on this one. The 18 other questions that you got right are now gone from your memory, but you'll remember those 2 questions that you missed.
So are you suggesting that in my post-mortem, I should look at all 20 problems and not just the 2 I missed?
No, I'm suggesting in the bridge hand, you decide that the opponent has 7-2-2-2. And here's why. Because when you discover he isn't 7-2-2-2, you draw trumps and he turns out with a singleton. Now it's very easy to go, he's 7-1-3-2. And then when the next discovery comes up, pretty soon you've counted his whole hand. And it is way easier to count your opponent's cards by starting with a likely distribution and then finding that you were wrong.
Wow.
And now you will remember how to count the hand every single time.
Wow, that's blowing my mind.
Does it make sense to you?
It does make a lot of sense. I wonder, to the point of, if you're going to remember it because you were wrong, why start with the likely they have 7-card suit? Why not start with they have a 5-card suit? And so I'm going to be wrong and learn.
Reason, which seems pretty obvious when you think about it, is that's not likely based upon what you know. In other words, all your experience tells you most of the time he's got 7 cards. Many of the times, if he's got 7, I'll just guess 2-2-2 because I just don't know.
Right.
But here's something about tips. And this is a good thing for you to know. What I told you, I started college in 1964 at State University of New York at Albany. Guess who went there at the same time I did? My often played with partner back then was Marty Bergen. And we stayed friends all this time. I'm not obviously in his league of ability to play. But Marty told me an interesting thing a few years ago. I've never forgotten, and I started to do it. Marty said, take every mistake that you make, journal it, write it down. And so if I'm consulting with Adam Parrish, I'm saying to him, listen, Adam, sometimes in the excitement of the game, you forget to look at spot cards. Write it down. And then the next time you misplay a hand because you forgot a spot card, write it down. And from time to time, go back over your journal and look at the frequency of the things that you had to write down. And all of a sudden, something will pop in your head. And you say, my goodness, this is the 5th time I've blown a hand because I forgot to look at the spot cards. So Marty was absolutely right about that. I started journaling these things, and I find that absent-mindedness stuck out more.
Let me go back to what you said earlier that the difference between an intermediate and an advanced player is that the advanced player can visualize the hands.
Mm-hmm.
Would you call that in the affective domain or in the cognitive bridge skill domain?
That's definitely the cognitive bridge skill domain.
Okay.
Being able to visualize the cards, I think, comes from a growth in experience of the game. That comes from experience. That you say, I'm missing everything else. That is a tip somebody gave me. I'm going to save that in my tips. Is make a visualization of what the opponents have.
Okay, so let's say that I am an intermediate player,
Okay.
and I want to become an advanced player, and I want to focus on this skill. I say, okay, Rib says the difference is visualizing the hand. I want to get better at that. And I hire you as my consultant to help me design a training program. What does it look like?
Okay, here's an important thing for everybody to remember, especially teaching pros. My observation has been that the teaching pros don't do a very good job. What many of them do is that they play the hand with the person, and when they get all done after the round, they tell the guy what they did wrong. But the trick in helping people cognitively is testing and repetition. So if you're in the classroom and I'm teaching the classroom, an academic thing is purely cognitive, right? So the only way I can figure out if you learned it is if I give you a test, right? You're not going to learn anything by me telling it to you over and over again. The real learning part of the cognitive domain is being tested. So it's a common phrase in instruction to say, the evidence of learning is a change in behavior. And the only way I can tell your behavior is changed is if I test you on it. Well, I can test you by letting you play more bridge, of course, but I should be able to come up with some tests where I show you a hand and I give you some of the bidding, and then I ask you questions about that when I get to the end. And now I can test you. And I can say to you, you got 4 out of 8 of them correct, Adam. I'm going to test you again about this next week. Let's see how you do. I'm going to bet you money that if attitudinally you are interested in learning, you will get a better score the next time. And the reason that test would be important or a good learning tool is you are away from the pressure of the bridge table when there's 1,000 other things on your mind. I can test your competency in an isolated environment where there's no emotion involved at all.
What if you don't have a coach? What if you're trying to do this on your own?
Not everybody has a coach, and not everybody can afford to pay a coach. But you and I have seen this written about everywhere that people give advice, and it's always the same. Get to play with a better player. Now, the fact of the matter is really good players don't want to play with turkeys like me, and I can't always get to play with real good players. I get to play with Norman Beck, who's an expert player, simply because we're friends, and he has an interest in learning as well, and he's a fabulous teacher. But you can't always do that. I think if you're a good person, you show some aptitude and some interest in learning the game, and you ask a better player and admit, look, I'm not as good a player as you. I could learn from you. If you ever are looking for a game, please ask me to play. I'd love to play with you.
Okay. You said before that a lot of the teaching pros aren't doing it right because they see their partner make a mistake. They tell them what the mistake was, right?
What you start out always in debriefs with somebody who's learning is, let's start with the things that you did well. You start out by saying, look, let's put all the stuff aside. There were mistakes, of course, and we'll work on those. But let's start by talking about the things that you did well today. Because I want to lock those things down in your muscle memory. I want you never to forget that. You took your time. And the second thing is, when you're talking about the things that somebody did well, you say, well, what if he didn't do very much well? Of course he did. You just got to be a better coach.
So my understanding, as part of the deliberate practice, that you want to focus on a single aspect that you are particularly working on.
Okay.
So let's say visualizing the hand or counting out the hand is what I'm working on. How do I design a program to work on that specific skill?
Well, you could easily write a test for that. I can think, I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I've written a ton of training materials, but I would say show the hand and then or show the bidding, and then show you see this a lot of times in the bridge bulletin where they'll show you the 7 cards remaining and then say block that out, and then or take the thing away. You're teaching the person, say, what does it look like? What do you know so far? Can you recreate what's been happening so far? What does the guy on your left have? What do you think he has? And just keep testing the person. In cognitive work, you always have to have a test component. And the good part about it, I indicated this before, is you've taken it away from the competition of the game and
Mm.
instead just doing testing materials where the person's emotions are neutral.
So I think I kind of understand how to work on these specific bridge skills, right? I can drill on this. If I need to work on declare play, I can read a book. I can take Adam's declare play class. I can use Bridge Master. If I want to work on counting out the hands, we just kind of talked about some things like that. But what about this affective domain?
Okay.
How do I work on that? Because you said if I had to pick one or the other, that's the one I should be working.
Well, it depends on whether the affective part is helping you or hurting you. In other words, if within the affective domain, which remember, these are attitudes and emotions, this is the other side of your brain, it takes control all the time. So part of it is to say, I must keep it in my mind, cognitive, that I'm playing a game that depends on cognitive level skills, always. I must suppress the affective domain of my brain if I am to play well. And I think I would bring that to the attention of somebody because I can say, I noticed that you strayed a little bit there, and it wasn't about talking about cards. We are here to play in a bridge tournament, and it's not a society contest. So while it's nice to greet the other people and tell them what a nice dress it is, I would like it if you would pay attention to the whole rigor of the game and be prepared to play the hand. That's an affective issue, the way people come to the table. And we hear that. We say he comes to the table prepared to play.
So I shouldn't be friendly?
Yes, you can be friendly, but it's right to say hello, and that's about it. But a lot of people are very friendly people and are happy to talk to you after the hand. But when it's time to sit down and play, a simple greeting, a fine thing to do. But then everybody should be ready to play the game.
So how do you develop that? I've never considered myself a very competitive person. I enjoy the game. I prefer to win, but it's not all consuming. And I feel like a lot of the top players hate to lose so much that, it drives them. Where does that come from and how does that affect performance?
Well, I do think it affects performance. And to be candid, I'm just like you. Bridge doesn't possess me.
Right.
I love the game. I've read a lot about it, but I'm just not. I'm way past those years when I used to be hooked on it.
Right. But what if I want it to possess me?
Oh.
Right? I was saying this is holding me back. That, I don't feel either the elation of winning or the devastation of losing the way I think other people do who are really competitive.
I think that you answered your own question earlier. These people, they hate to lose. They're driven and they're manic about it. They can't imagine not losing. And so they work like crazy to get better and better. They're the ones that are thinking about bridge and playing hands in their head all the time.
Is that level of drive, is that innate? Or is that something that one can work on? I am trying to get up that level. Like I am saying, I am committed to this, but I don't know how. And I want to breathe, live, and drink bridge all day long, but it's not built into my personality. And so can I develop that?
I don't know, but my guess is that I don't think so because I don't think that you have the gene for it. I think you've made a life decision about where the game fits into your life. And I would say, given your writing, which is outstanding, by the way, you seem to have found a way to really enjoy the game, to be able to communicate it well, to take pleasure from it. What more can you want from that? And if there's a part of you that's taking away from that desire to be the Spingold winner, well, maybe you don't want to do the work to be the Spingold winner if you're taking such delight in the other areas that you perform right now. I mean, why spoil a good thing?
Well, I mean, Can I have both? Can't
Yeah, you
I
can.
continue to write well, but also be competitive in the spin gold?
Yes, yes you can. But it would require a great deal of concentration, and I don't know how it is that I could simulate a training program that would do that. That would be a life experience. You'd actually have to go there and play in a bunch of them.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's my goal for the year is to see if that's possible and what it would look like. So let's say I hire you as my consultant
Okay.
and I say, Ribs, this is the goal is I'm a good player, but I want to be elite.
Okay.
And I am willing to do whatever you tell me to do. I have the time, I have the will. Help me design this program. What do you recommend?
Somebody with expert level experience who had to conquer the same thing. I'd find the guy or the gal who has gone through that and say, it's time to reach a new plateau in my game. You've done that. Can you work with me a little bit? Could we have some post game conversations about it? And let me talk through my performance. And we'll talk about the things that I did well and the things that I still need to concentrate and what you did to get to that level. What were those things?
Yeah,
That's what I do. I would find the non-ribs person.
so let's say that I want to really focus on these affective issues. How does that differ from sports psychology? And what do I need to do both in my training and at the table?
Okay, I'm going to start with the positive. I remember a guy used to coach at Notre Dame, Lou Holtz. He did a color commentary in a college football game one day, and the team that they're talking about was ahead. They were ahead by like less than a touchdown, and now there's very little time left. The quarterback comes over the sideline, and the play-by-play guy says, I never forgot this. He says, he's probably telling him not to throw an interception. And Lou Holtz almost went crazy. He says, that's the last thing in the world that he'd be talking to him about. You don't tell the guy about all the things that could go wrong. He said, you tell the guy the things that you covered in practice. He said, you're a good quarterback. You know how to control the football. This is a time when you're going to shine. Let's plan out there. You're going to control the ball. That's what you do. Is I would say you're going to focus on all the positive parts about the game. So you're a good teacher. We know that you are a good teacher. That's you. Why don't you approach the game and you say to yourself, listen, Adam, I'm a really good, strong teacher of this game. I understand it clearly. I've been successful at it. A magazine pays me to write about this. I know how to do this.
Mm.
That is a mindset that you have going into the game that would be very important for you to develop if you want to raise your game. Say to yourself, I want to be the guy that learned from Adam Parrish. It seems like a simple thing, but that's a huge part of your mindset being a teacher.
Let's say that I draw the nickel team in the spin gold. I'm a huge underdog. It's impossible for me to imagine going into that match not realizing I'm an underdog. Like, am I supposed to go in saying these guys are chumps? I can beat these guys?
No, no. But let's come back to the teaching metaphor. You say, listen, if I pay attention, if I bid correctly, if I follow all the advice that I've been giving others, I'm going to play a darn good game today. And all I have to do, I have just as good a chance of winning today as anybody else who shows up at these tables if I play a good concentrated game. That's really all you have to do. You are not going to go in and tell yourself a lie that I'm better than these guys, because that's not true. People prepare others to win by keeping them focused on the positive. I'm coaching a guy and I want him to play well. So before the game, I'm saying to you, we've been over everything. You've learned a ton. You got tremendous knowledge. You got a nice bidding toolkit. You know how to defend. You know how to declare. I'm confident in you. Just tell it to yourself.
What about should I give my partner a similar pep talk?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you how I would do it. Try to say the positive thing to your partner. I think all people should remember that. Say one good thing to your partner before the game starts every single time, because you don't know what's going on with them emotionally.
And I know at the table, it's important to move on to the next hand.
Yes.
Okay, that's in the past, this one.
Yeah.
But that's really hard to do, especially when you've just done something really dumb. So, are there tools or suggestions practically to I just miscounted trumps and went down in a slam. I know I'm supposed to pick up the cards, focus on this current hand, but I can't stop thinking about how I just let my teammates down and blew 13 imps, and I'm an idiot and I shouldn't ever play bridge again.
Here's what I did. I
Okay.
don't know if this works, but because I'm so bad at this, the reason why we talked about this is a Bob Hammond trait that everybody admires. I tell my partner, if you ever see that I'm doing that, stop me. Just say, hey, focus on this. Just give me a gentle reminder. Don't yell at me, but just
Yeah.
remind me, hey, that's over.
Yeah. I mean, right. I've certainly said, okay, next hand.
Yep.
But when you're stewing in it, I don't think that's enough,
No,
right?
I know. But
So what do I do? Like what are there mechanisms that I can work on over time to train this part of my emotion?
I'm wondering if there's not a trick word for that. I'll think of a trick word. Think of a 6-letter word that begins with H and ends with an N. Okay, how about Hammond? And every time you feel yourself doing it, you just close your eyes and go Hammond. That's it. It's just one of those little, and so you get in the habit of using this little mental reminder, Hammond, and then
Hammond.
all of a sudden it's gone.
Are there things I can do away from the table to work on my mental game and my affective stuff so that when I do get to the table, I'm in the right mind space?
I used to be a pretty serious competitive runner, and I used to play this little mental trick. I would go out to run on a day that was freezing cold, or some day that I knew nobody is going to be out here but me. And I used to tell that to myself all through the agonizing miles and say, the great thing about this run is that come race day, I have this leg up. And if there's something else that you do that you can use that mindset for, or that's equivalent, you can do that. Being better at bridge right now is going to be my vocation, not my avocation. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to work as hard on this to make money and to be successful at it as if it were my real job.
And tell yourself, no one else is doing this.
There you go.
Right?
Nobody
They're
else
not
is.
putting in these hours.
I think at my age, I'm 78, I find that I have aphasia, and it's a memory disorder where a common name. I'm thinking, who is that guy I talked to Adam somebody? And then I go, Parrot. So I have found that if I repeat a word out loud, I'll remember that word. I now have taken up this new habit. I just taught myself to do it. I meet somebody for the first time. The guy says, nice to meet you. I'm Adam Parrish. And I say to the person, Parrish, spell that for me. He
Mm.
says, Parrish. I will never forget Adam Parrish in my life from that moment
Wow.
on. It's a small thing, but I started to do it, and now I remember everybody.
Mm.
Why? I was a great speller when I was young, and
Yeah.
so I'm thinking, well, what was I? I was a good speller. So get people to spell their name. They spell it, I see it, and then I never forget it.
I find that hearing does help me. I've developed the habit when I'm playing and calling from the dummy, I don't say play a low club. I try to say play the deuce of clubs, play the four. And, that just helps me remember the spot cards. But of course, when I'm defending and declare just says play low, right, I have to kind of do it in my head four.
Well, you just gave me a great tip, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Say it
great
out
idea.
loud.
I love it. I never thought to do that. I'm going to start doing that now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I taught you something today
Oh,
too.
see? So, in
Yeah.
addition to every month, I get something on the podcast.
Do you have any sort of training regimen that you do for yourself? It sounds like you're a more casual player,
I am.
but it sounds like you read a lot.
Yes, I do.
Is there anything else, like if you decided that you wanted to devote more time to getting better at bridge, what do you think you would do?
I would hire an expert player to coach me, but I would be very careful about how I chose that coach. That's number one. Number two, I would get guidance on what to read. But there's a wonderful quote by Terence Reese. He says, anytime somebody tells me I never read a bridge book, I always say in reply, I can tell. When you read the bridge books, there's often a couple of tips in there that are worth remembering. And that's what I've learned to do, is distill from the book the things I've learned. I haven't written those down, all of them. But in journaling, when I make a mistake, I write down the error that I made. And a lot of mine come down to the ones you said. I'm not paying careful enough attention to the spot cards, which tell a story of their own. And so that's it. And sometimes I will forget a very, very easy convention that I should have remembered.
Let me share something that I did that was really stupid recently. And I'm curious where the fault lies, whether it's in the bridge, whether it's in this affective thing, whether it's just in concentration. But I had Queen Jack, I had knocked out something, but I had Queen Jack, say, fourth left opposite a singleton. And the Queen and the Jack were high. And there were 3 of them left. And so I said, okay, well, I can just play over and the Queen Jack will win. And then I can take the other ones and throw my losers. Okay. But what if those missing ones are 3-0?
I just thought the
right?
same thing. Right.
I can counter that by roughing once, and then I know they'll be good. And so my brain went play a low one, rough it, even though I had a singleton, and then I was going to play my singleton over to the dummy.
Yep.
And obviously that's insane.
Of
right?
course.
Right? But I had like a plan, and then I realized, oh, there's another thing that's in my toolkit, right? I know, oh, sometimes you rough the thing and, you get one less pitch, but right. Whatever. And it didn't occur to me that this is not the situation for that. I'm not void in the suit.
The concentration went away.
Yeah. Where does that fall and how does one remedy that? Is that laziness? Is it a lack of concentration? What's going on there?
I call that a lack of concentration.
I think we all have these mental concentration lapses.
Yes. I'm glad to hear that you have them.
I do. Yeah. And so the low-hanging fruit for almost every bridge player is avoiding them. And one of the things I was talking with Boya Brogland, and he said, the question is, how do you treat every hand you're playing like it's the last hand of the Spingold and the event is on the line?
Ah.
Right? Because in that case, you're going to double and triple check.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
How do you get yourself into that mental space? How do you avoid these lapses in concentration?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you that was a wonderful comment by him, because that's the way experts play. And many times people have said this to me. Other experts have said, I don't play much better than you do. The difference in my game and your game is that I don't make the mistakes. People have told me this over and over again. We are the intermediate players. We're the mistake makers. And I sure fit into that category.
Yeah, bridge is a game of mistakes. It's just as you get better and better, your mistakes get better.
Yeah.
Right? Your mistake is, I missed this double super upside down spiral space. Right? But it's not, I miscounted trumps.
That's right.
Or, I didn't notice that my 6 was high. So I think for every bridge player, finding a way to avoid these silly mental lapses of concentration would be the first thing to really make them better.
I think so. I have to agree with that. Sure. You look back and say, boy, was that dumb. And I shouldn't do things that are dumb.
Right. We all finish a session and there's 2 or 3 just blatant zeros when you're like, I miscounted key cards. Mm-hmm. Or why would I overcall with that? That was crazy. Or, I forgot we were playing Bergen. Or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'm really interested in, is there something one can do either in the training away from the table or the psychology at the table to prevent or at least decrease those?
Yeah. Well, you've hit on the things to do. I think the trick is remembering to do them. We have mnemonic devices and stuff like that might work. You might say, when I'm declare, I always use this mnemonic. when I'm about to draw a trump, I use that mnemonic, and you get in the habit of doing that every single time. But you've just listed a number of errors that I've certainly made a number of times, more than you.
And often for me, it's also you make a bid and then you think of, oh, I forgot this other bid that would have been better, right? Oh, I forgot we're playing fit showing jumps, and jumping to 4 clubs would have been
Yep.
even better.
Well, I do that every day.
Yeah, yeah, we all do.
So I guess for the remedy for that is every time you make a bid, you say, I'm going to overcall 2 hearts now. And if you just pause a second and think, there may be a better bid than that 2 hearts. Every time you think you've got this great bid, you're just about to make it, you're about to turn that card over, just say, I'm not in any hurry here. There might be something else. I missed an obvious Michael's bid that way. I overcalled 1 spade when I had spades and clubs. The guy opened a heart. Bad
I
hand.
like the idea of some of these mnemonics, right? I really like the Hammond one, right? I'm steaming Hammond.
Yep. Just say Hammond.
Right. Thinking, is there another bid that's better?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like online when you have the option of confirming your bid, right? You click on 1 heart and then you have to hit OK.
Yep.
Maybe using that as a method to reinforce this and say, I'm double checking. Yeah, I'm going to try that. I'm going to turn on, because I hate it. I hate the, I have to approve it.
I have it on there all the time, and I tell my partners, don't, please make sure you have that on there. Take your time.
Yeah. But, and when I do have it on, I usually just automatically 1 spade, okay, right? I'm not thinking. But maybe, having that second click to say, are you sure, right? Like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they would say, is that your final answer?
There you go.
This was fantastic. Ribs, thank you so much. I feel like I learned a lot, and this is going to be really helpful for a lot of my listeners.
I hope so, Adam. And I've made a new friend today. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, Ribs.
Bye.